Okay, hello and welcome to my live today. So today we are still exploring the IELTS test. Okay, um, today I'll be starting off by explaining what the IELTS listening test is, or what it entails. Understanding the IELTS listening test. Like I said in my previous videos, the IELTS test has four components or four sections. We have the listening test, the reading test, the writing test, and the speaking test. So today I want to take you through the IELTS listening test, what it entails. And there are four things that you need to understand in the IELTS listening test. You need to understand the skills that are tested. Which skills are tested in the IELTS listening test, okay? Number two, you need to understand the content. What does it entail? All right. Number three, you also need to understand the timing. Okay, you need to understand the timing. And number four, you need to understand the questions and the marking. How are the questions set and how is the test marked and graded? Okay, so these four, the moment you understand this, then you'll be good to start off now, the training or, understanding now better what is it, especially like in my next video, I'll be taking you through the traps. What makes people score very low marks in listening test? Just like I said, the IELTS test is all about strategy. What is it that makes people score very low points in the IELTS listening test? So that I'm not covering that today. I'll be sharing that in my next video. So all you need to do is just follow my videos and for you to get every detail, okay? Every detail. So I want to share my screen and just take you through briefly. It will take a very short time. It will take a very short time. Okay. So because you need to understand what the test is all about before you get to know. All right. So first, to begin with, you need to understand the skills that are tested. The skills that are tested in the IELTS listening test. Number one, understanding factual information and the main ideas. In fact, you really need to take a pen and a paper. This is a real classroom. The next videos, you really need to get a pen and a paper and make your notes, especially if you are either planning to enroll for the test, either you've done the training and you need now to understand, the tips and all those, fine details before you sit for that test. Or you've not even started the training, you need to take a pen and a book or a paper and make notes. So understanding the factual information and the main ideas. Just like it sounds, the listening test. Listening test, you expect to listen to an audio. It's an audio that is being played or that will be played during the day that you'll be doing the test. And some questions, we have different types, question types. Some questions will require you to just pick the main ideas from whatever conversation that you'll be listening to. Okay? It could be a conversation between two people, or it could be a monologue. Okay? So you'll be required, so this is one skill that is tested, your ability to pick the main ideas from either a monologue or a dialogue or a conversation between people. All right? So this is one. That is the first skill that is tested in the IELTS listening test. Number two, recognizing the opinions and attitudes of speakers. Just like I said, the audios, you could be listening to a monologue or a conversation between two, mostly it's between 2 to 4 people. It could be 2 people, it could be 3 people, it could be 4 people. It is maximum 4 people in a conversation. So your ability, the skill that is tested there is your ability to recognize opinions, especially if you are listening to 2 people. For example, you are listening to a teacher and a student, discussing something, or maybe 2 students discussing a topic. Okay, so you will be tested to, your ability to recognize student A, their opinions or attitudes, or student B, or a teacher. What does the teacher feel about this, whatever topic they're discussing? Or what does this, the other party, maybe it's a student, what do they feel about, or what is their opinion, okay, about the topic they are discussing? So that is another skill that is tested in the IELTS listening test. All right. So, number one, your ability to pick the main ideas. Number two, your ability to recognize opinions. Okay. People's opinions. All right. And then, lastly, number three, the third skill that is tested in the IELTS listening test is your ability to follow through the development of an argument or a talk, because you will also be listening to, for example, a talk that is presented possibly by, an expert in a topic. All right, they will be discussing a topic at length. So the skill that will be tested there is your ability to follow through the argument or the discussion and get the information. Okay, because as you listen, this is something that you'll understand as we move forward. As you listen, you are answering questions. So your ability to focus and follow through that conversation as you answer the questions. Okay, so these are the three skills that are tested in an IELTS listening test. The next thing that you need to understand in this IELTS listening test is the content. The content of the test. Number one, okay, just like I mentioned in one of my videos, in IELTS test, in the listening test, both the test takers who are taking IELTS academic or IELTS general training, they do the same test. Okay, so whichever test you are taking, the IELTS listening test is one and the same. So that is one thing that you need to know about the content. Okay, number two, the test has 4 sections. The test has 4 sections. Okay, and the sections include both monologues and conversations or discussions, just like I mentioned earlier. You could be listening to somebody talking in a monologue, either explaining a topic, or it's somebody who is an expert in some field, and they are, talking. Just assume that you are listening to a podcast, for those of you who listen to podcasts. So that is a typical example of an audio that can be played in a listening test. All right. So you listen to monologues or discussions or dialogues. It could be a discussion between students discussing a topic, or a teacher and a student discussing. Okay, just like I said, the conversations or the dialogues, they mostly happen between 2 to 4 people. All right. So that is the second thing that you need to know about the content of the IELTS listening test. Number three, okay, I've already even mentioned that the conversations can involve as many as 4 speakers. I've already mentioned that. All right. Okay, and then next, while the 2 sections are set in everyday social situations, the last 2 have an educational or training context. Just like I said, there are 4 sections, okay? The first 2 sections, they are just based on everyday. Remember, like I said, IELTS academic, it's more of a study related environment, while general training, it is social life or workplace related environment. Okay, so they try to combine these 2 environments. Okay, so the first 2 sections of the IELTS listening test, you'll be listening to conversations or a monologue, within a normal social environment, or workplace. It could be possibly maybe you a new employee who has reported duty, and they are being taken through an orientation process. All right. So it's just a normal social situation or workplace situation. While the other 2 last sections, you'll be listening to people talking, discussing something, either something school-based, like just I said, maybe a teacher and a student, or students discussing a topic. Or you could be listening to, let's say, an engineer talking about, for example, discussing about a type of maybe a new car, giving details or a talk about the functions and the parts, the spare parts, the everything that's regarding this specific thing they are talking about. So yes, so that is basically what the 2 environments, what you need to understand. And lastly, a range of voices is used. This is very, very important. And this is one, when I'll be talking about the challenges or problems that test takers face and how to overcome these problems, this will come up. It is one of them, to do with the accents, listening to different accents. In the IELTS listening test, you'll be listening to a range of voices or range of accents. You might listen to a British, accent, or an American accent, Australian accent, New Zealand accent. So you'll be listening either the first section, you'll be hearing the monologue, in let's say an American accent, all right? And then you move to section 2, where maybe you are listening to, or section 3, where you're listening to 2 people discussing a topic. And these 2 people, the environment, the voices you are hearing, they're in, it's a British accent. And then you move to section 4, the person who is talking about a topic, is also, picking another a different accent. So this is something that you need to understand, that the IELTS listening test, you'll be listening to a variety or a range of accents. And mostly, in most cases, it is British accent, American accent, Australian accent, and New Zealand accents. All right. So that is all you need to understand about the content. And then next, it's about the timing. The listening test, the IELTS listening tests lasts approximately 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So you move from one section to another, one section to another. So when I'll be talking later on in my next videos, I'll explain more. But just for now, you need to know that you'll be having 30 minutes of listening to audios, okay? Different types of audios. At the end of the 30 minutes, you are given 10 minutes to transfer your answers or write your answers and double check and make sure everything is okay. So, and this is the only IELTS test section. The IELTS listening test is the only section where you are given extra time to check your answers and transfer your answers and do the final touches before you hand over your answer sheets. Okay, so in short, you'll be listening to audios for a total of 30 minutes. And once that time lapses, you are given 10 minutes to go through your work and transfer your answers. In my next videos, you'll understand what I mean by transferring your answers, okay? So for 10, so that makes a total of 40 minutes, okay? And lastly, all the recordings are usually played once. So you need to be alert and focus and put your everything, like all your time and everything. You need to be there that moment. The moment an audio is played, it is just once. You listen to that audio at once. Remember, you are supposed to listen and you are reading the questions at the same time and you are answering. All these things you are doing at the same time. Unfortunately, the audio will be played only once, okay? So once it's done, it's done. You move next to the next section. All right, so that is all you need to understand about timing. It is 30 minutes listening to the audios and 10 minutes writing your answers. And then what you need to understand is you only listen to the audio once. And lastly, questions and marking of the IELTS listening test. The test has a total of 40 questions, and each question has 1 mark or 1 point. 40 questions, each question has 1 mark or 1 point. So 1 mark is very important. Okay? And we have different types of questions. We have multiple choice questions. We have labeling of maps or diagrams. Okay. We also have another type of questions giving short answers or filling information. So these are all the, the types of questions that you'll encounter in that listening test. But when you go through the training, all these types of questions are covered, they are practiced, and by the time you're going to do your test, you're so familiar with all these different types of test questions. All right. And lastly, like I said, one question has 1 point. And once the raw scores have been, marked out of 40, remember, you have 40 questions. And if you get, for example, 20 out of 40, and one thing I need to tell you, for you to get to 20, trust me, it's no joke, okay? People struggle so hard to get to 20 out of 40. So much as the listening test might sound so easy, it's a walk in the park. Trust me, when it comes to that test, in my next videos, make sure you stay tuned. You will understand why this listening test suddenly turns out into a nightmare, okay? When now you get to that test room, and eventually when the results come out, when you find yourself scoring a 5 out of 40. So when the raw marks have been marked out of 40, there's a way they are calculated into or converted into the band scale. Remember, I mentioned in my previous videos about the IELTS test. The IELTS test is ranked, on based on a band scale. So you are given a band score. It's either it ranges from band 0. I said what 0 means. If you haven't watched my video about IELTS test, you need to check why somebody would get a band 0 in IELTS test. Band 0 to band 9. So when you go through the training again, I have to mention this. You are actually exposed to a real live like test situation. So when we mark, like when we engage with our students, when we mark the practice test that we do the ranking or the marking or the grading in terms of the band scores. We don't do, oh, you have a 20 out of 40, you have a, we do because there's a way we convert the points into the band scores. So by the time you are approaching your test date, you already know where you are. You already know where you are. If you are looking at a band 6, maybe that is what, wherever you are migrating to, that is what you are required, a band 6 minimum. Mostly we really work so hard to get to band 7, 7.5. So by the time you are going to sit for that exam, you are aiming at band 7.5. If your minimum requirement is a 6, so we are always aiming at a high. So yes, so this is all you need to understand about the IELTS listening test. The skills that are tested, the content, the timing, and the questions, and how the marking is done. Once you understand this, okay, once you understand this, then you'll be ready. You'll be ready to, start your practice, or if you haven't started training, you'll be ready to start off your training, understanding what you are getting yourself into. All right. Stay tuned. In my next videos, I'll be talking about, like I said, the traps. The traps. You will come to understand that this IELTS test, like why I keep on saying that it's not that we don't know English. We know English. We've been speaking English all our life. But there are some traps that they put somewhere, because the whole thing is they just want to know if you are able to focus and concentrate and get whatever it is that the examiner is looking for. Okay, so I'll be talking about the traps, that make people score a very low, points in the listening test. I'll also be talking about the problems or the challenges that students or test takers experience, and how to overcome them. So stay tuned. I hope to see you next time.